Sharks have been swimming in the Earth's oceans for much longer than most people realize. As a group, sharks have existed for about 450 million years. This means that sharks were already around for 200 million years before the first dinosaur ever walked the Earth. They have survived 5 major mass extinction events that wiped out most other life forms. They are even older than trees. The first trees didn't appear on land until about 350 million years ago. Sharks are essentially living fossils that have perfected their design over nearly 500 million years. The Great Wall of China is not visible from space. There's a very common myth that the Great Wall of China is the only man-made object visible from a moon or even from low Earth orbit with a naked eye. In reality, this is not true at all. The Great Wall is made of stones and materials that are roughly the same color as the surrounding dirt and mountains. Because it is also quite narrow, it is very difficult to see from space without a high-powered camera lens. On the other hand, things like city lights at night, large airports, and even some long highways are much easier for astronauts to spot than the Great Wall. The Dancing Forest of Poland. In a small corner of western Poland, there is a strange collection of about 400 pine trees, known as the Crooked Forest. Every single tree in this grove has a sharp, 90-degree bend at the base of its trunk, and they all curve in the exact same direction toward the north. After the curve, the trees grow straight up toward the sky. Scientists and historians are still not 100% sure why this happened. Some people think a unique snowstorm weighed them down when they were young, while others believe that local farmers manually bent the trees in the 1930s to create naturally curved timber for making boats, but abandoned them when World War II began. The weight of all the ants on Earth. If you were to take every single ant currently living on the planet and put them on a giant scale, and then put every single human being on another scale, the weight would be surprisingly close. There are estimated to be 20 quadrillion ants on Earth. While one ant weighs almost nothing, their sheer numbers are so overwhelming that their combined biomass is roughly equal to, or according to some recent studies, even greater than the weight of all 8 billion humans combined. This shows just how much insects dominate the land in terms of total biological presence. The internal compass of sea turtles. Sea turtles are famous for traveling thousands of miles across the open ocean to return to the exact same beach where they were born to lay their own eggs. They can do this because they have a built-in GPS system based on the Earth's magnetic field. Tiny particles of magnetite in their brains allow them to sense the magnetic pull of the Earth. They can detect both the strength and the angle of the magnetic field, which tells them exactly where they are on the planet. It is essentially like having a permanent map and compass inside their heads that never needs batteries. The butterfly's incredible transformation. When a caterpillar turns into a butterfly inside its chrysalis, it doesn't just grow wings. It actually digests itself completely. Once the caterpillar is sealed inside, it releases enzymes that dissolve all of its tissues until it becomes a thick, nutrient-rich liquid soup. Only a few specialized groups of cells, called imaginal discs, survive this process. These cells then use this soup as fuel to rapidly build the legs, wings, eyes, and body of the butterfly. It is one of the most extreme biological rebuilds in the entire animal kingdom. The fact that strawberries are not berries. In the world of science and botany, the definitions of fruits and vegetables are very different from how we use them in the kitchen. Technically, a berry is a fruit that comes from a single flower with one ovary, and usually has seeds on the inside. This means that bananas, watermelons, and even pumpkins are technically berries. However, strawberries are not berries at all. They are considered aggregate fruits because they form from a flower that has many ovaries. Even weirder, the little yellow seeds on the outside of strawberry are actually the fruit themselves, each containing its own tiny seed. The coldest place in the known universe. You might think the coldest place in the universe is a distant planet or the dark space between stars, but the coldest spot we know of is actually right here on Earth in a lab. In deep space, the temperature is about minus 270 degrees Celsius. However, scientists in laboratories use lasers and magnetic fields to slow down atoms until they almost stop moving entirely. They have achieved temperatures that are only a billionth of a degree above absolute zero, which is the point where all motion stops. This makes human-made labs the record holders for the most extreme cold ever recorded. The tree that can grow 40 different fruits. An artist and professor named Sam Van Aken created a single tree that can grow 40 different types of stone fruits, including peaches, plums, apricots, nectarines, and cherries. He achieved this through a process called grafting. He takes a small sliver of a branch from one tree and tucks it into a cut on a working tree, then bandages it until the two grow together. During most of the year, it looks like a normal tree, but in the spring, it blooms in a stunning mosaic of pink, white, and crimson colors, and in the summer, it produces dozens of different fruits all at once. The deepest hole ever dug by humans. The Kola Super Deep borehole in Russia is the deepest hole ever dug by humans, reaching a depth of about 7.5 miles into the Earth's crust. It took almost 20 years to dig that far. Even though 7.5 miles sounds like a lot, it is actually incredibly shallow compared to the size of the Earth. If the Earth were the size of an apple, this hole wouldn't even have broken through the skin. The project was eventually stopped because the heat at that depth was much higher than expected, reaching 180 degrees Celsius, which made the drill bits act like they were trying to dig through soft plastic. The way Venus rotates backwards. In our solar system, almost all of the planets rotate in the same direction as they orbit the Sun. However, Venus is a strange exception. It rotates in the opposite direction, meaning that if you could stand on its surface, the Sun would rise in the west and set in the east. Even more bizarre is how slowly it spins. It takes about 243 Earth days for Venus to complete just one single rotation on its axis. This means that a day on Venus is actually longer than a Venusian year, which only takes 225 Earth days to travel around the Sun. The power of a hippo's jaw. Hippopotamuses are often portrayed as cute, chubby water animals, but they are actually one of the most dangerous creatures in Africa. A hippo's jaw is strong enough to snap a 10-foot crocodile in half with a single bite. Their mouths can open to a 180-degree angle, showing off teeth that can grow up to 20 inches long. These teeth aren't for eating meat. Hippos mostly eat grass, but they are used as deadly weapons for defending their territory. They are extremely fast in the water and can even outrun a human on land. The floating pumice stones. Most rocks sink when you throw them into water because they are much denser than the liquid. However, a volcanic rock called pumice is the exception to the rule. Pumice is created during violent volcanic eruptions when lava is filled with gas and then cools very quickly. This creates a rock that is full of tiny air bubbles, making it look like a stony sponge. Because it is mostly made of air, pumice is less dense than water and can float for years. After underwater volcanic eruptions, giant rafts of floating pumice can be found in the ocean, sometimes miles long. The strange biology of the platypus. The platypus is so weird that when European scientists first saw a preserved specimen, they thought it was a prank made by sewing different animals together. It has a bill like a duck, a tail like a beaver, and fur like an otter. It is a mammal, yet it lays eggs instead of giving birth to live young. To make it even stranger, the males have venomous spurs on their back ankles that can cause excruciating pain to humans. They also don't have stomachs. Their esophagus connects directly to their intestines, meaning their food is never treated with the strong acids most animals use for digestion. The amount of bacteria in your mouth. There's an entire ecosystem living inside your mouth at this very moment. Scientists estimate that there are more bacteria living in a single human mouth than there are people on the entire Earth. While that might sound gross, most of these bacteria are actually helpful. They create a protective layer that prevents harmful germs from moving in and helps start the process of breaking down your food. However, when you eat sugar, certain bacteria produce acid as a byproduct, which is what eventually eats away at your teeth and causes cavities. The history of the term Bluetooth. The wireless technology we use every day to connect our headphones and phones was actually named after a 10th century Viking king named Harald Bluetooth Gormson. He was famous for uniting different Scandinavian tribes in Denmark and Norway. The creators of the technology chose this name because they wanted their system to unite different devices and industries, much like the king united the tribes. Even the Bluetooth logo is a combination of two ancient Viking runes that represent the king's initials, H and B, the human eye and megapixels. If the human eye were a digital camera, it would have a resolution of about 576 megapixels. For comparison, the most expensive smartphones usually have cameras between 12 and 108 megapixels. However, our eyes don't work like a camera that takes a single snapshot. Instead, Our eyes are constantly moving and sending a stream of information to the brain, which then stitches everything together into a seamless, high-resolution 3D image. Most of our high-detail vision is actually concentrated in a very small spot in the center of our gaze. The mystery of the sailing stones. In Death Valley, California, there's a flat lake bed called Racetrack Playa where giant rocks seem to move across the ground on their own, leaving long tracks behind them in the dirt. For decades, no one saw them move. Some thought it was aliens or magnetic fields. In 2014, scientists finally caught them in the act using GPS and cameras. It turns out that when a thin layer of rain freezes on the ground at night, it creates a window pane of ice. When the sun starts to melt the ice the next day, light winds can push the large sheets of ice, which drag the heavy rocks slowly across the mud. The fact that cows have best friends. Cows are very social and emotional animals. Research has shown that cows have specific best friends within their herds and become very stressed when they are separated from them. When a cow is placed with its favorite companion, its heart rate goes down and it appears much more relaxed. If they're separated, they will show signs of anxiety, such as pacing and making loud calling sounds. This suggests that cows have complex social lives and form deep bonds with others, much like humans or dogs do.